movie buff from early childhood. I saw my first movie when I was like 6 years old. It was King Kong.
It's not her fault. It's the period. It's upsetting to watch. Tell you
Well, it shouldn't be that way because somebody did make money.
Yeah.
You know.
If there's one thing you need to know about Morgan Freeman, it is how much he hates being saddled with race-based political viewpoints just because of his skin color. But just 2 weeks ago, The View invited him on the panel, only to do great injustice to his presence on the show in every way possible. First by only having him on for the mere 5 minutes, and then trying to steer the conversation to political waters while talking about his new documentary. Let's just watch and you'll see.
Welcome back to AllStarBuzz. Thank you for joining us. And let's begin. When Morgan Freeman almost walked off The View, the fallout wasn't just about what he said, it was about what they didn't want the world to hear. And trust me, the masks slipped fast. This wasn't some harmless disagreement. It was a full-blown masterclass in gaslighting and damage control. The second Freeman veered off their polished, pre-approved narrative, the hosts panicked like they'd been hit with a truth bomb on live TV. His words weren't just bold, they shattered the carefully curated illusion. The View has spent years crafting. He called them out, plain and simple, exposing their reluctance to have real, unfiltered conversations about history, race, and accountability. And oh, they did not like that. The moment those cameras cut, the backstage chaos was real. Whispers filled the studio. We need to reframe this. And this wasn't the direction we wanted, as producers scrambled to clean up the mess. Meanwhile, on air, the hosts clumsily tried to steer things back to their usual sugar-coated narrative, throwing out vague lines about diverse perspectives and respecting opinions. But let's be real, the audience wasn't buying it for a second. Social media erupted! Fans saw right through the desperate attempt to silence Freeman, dragging the hosts for their history of shutting down guests who refused to play along. And let's not forget, this is far from the first time The View has been accused of cutting off voices that don't fit their agenda. There are countless viral clips of guests being talked over, dismissed, or conveniently misunderstood. But this time, it blew up even bigger, because let's be honest, you don't try to shut down Morgan Freeman, the man everyone recognizes as the voice of wisdom, and expect to get away with it. The aftermath was chaotic. Freeman? He didn't even need to respond. The internet did all the talking. And The View? They put out a cookie-cutter statement about fostering meaningful dialogue. Yeah, sure. Meaningful dialogue? Oh, the irony was thick, and nobody was fooled. Critics roasted the show for its hypocrisy, pointing out that their version of a conversation only works when guests stick to the pre-approved script. And just when things couldn't get messier, former staffers stepped forward, spilling the real tea. Producers carefully vet every talking point to dodge controversy, unless it boosts their ratings. See, they love drama, just the kind they can control. One insider didn't hold back, revealing, Morgan Freeman exposed them because he wasn't playing by their rules. And that's the truth they just couldn't handle. Meanwhile, Freeman's fans wasted no time rallying behind him, sharing clips of the interview and breaking down every word. The internet made one thing clear. He didn't just call them out. He tore down the illusion of these so-called progressive platforms. And they weren't ready for it. One viral tweet put it bluntly. They claim to support open discussions, but the second Freeman spoke his mind, they panicked. Meanwhile, others clowned the hosts for their painfully awkward reactions, turning them into memes faster than you can say, "Cut to commercial!" But the real dagger came from viewers who pointed out the blatant contradiction. How can The View claim to represent diverse perspectives while shutting down one of Hollywood's most respected voices? One op-ed that quickly gained traction asked, If Morgan Freeman can't get a word in without being sidelined, what does that say about their commitment to real dialogue? The backlash? Relentless. In the days that followed, calls for The View to issue an apology only grew louder. Activists, historians, and everyday viewers demanded accountability, not just for the Freeman debacle, but for the entire pattern of controlling narratives and dodging uncomfortable truths. And while the hosts desperately tried to move on like nothing happened, the internet wasn't letting it slide. Hashtags like #CancelTheView and #LetMorganSpeak trended for days as people called for a total overhaul of the show. And Freeman? True to form, he didn't even flinch. He let the noise play out, his silence speaking volumes. And in the end, it left everyone asking, why are platforms like The View still so obsessed with optics over substance? The fallout from this moment didn't just spark outrage, it ignited a reckoning. People weren't just talking about The View's hypocrisy anymore. The debate had expanded into something much bigger. The conversation turned to the real issue, the media's role in silencing dissent and the dangers of performative allyship. And by the time the dust settled, The View wasn't just exposed, they were stripped bare. And Morgan Freeman? Untouched, unbothered, unshaken. His legacy only grew stronger, reminding everyone that the truth will always outlast the spin. As the cultural landscape shifted, one thing became crystal clear. Freeman had done what he set out to do. He started a conversation so big that no amount of PR damage control could silence it. His words rippled far beyond Hollywood and social media. Advocacy groups seized the moment, using his message to push for stronger representation and the inclusion of historically erased narratives in both entertainment and education. And then, academia jumped in. Universities started planning seminars and workshops inspired by Freeman's critique. Some even floated the idea of inviting him to speak on themes like uncovering untold histories and the media's role in shaping identity. Meanwhile, Hollywood was squirming. Some studios scrambled to put out vague statements about commitments to diversity, but a few indie production houses took it further. They actually announced plans for documentaries and dramas, highlighting the forgotten contributions of Black soldiers, scientists, and trailblazers, stories that had long been pushed aside. And The View? They were flailing. Their initial statement did nothing to calm the outrage. So, in a desperate attempt to save face, they suddenly wanted Freeman back for an extended segment. Now they were claiming they wanted to give his message the time it deserved. But would Freeman take the bait? That remained the question. True to form, he let his silence do the talking, forcing the world to sit with the uncomfortable truths he had laid bare. But while he stayed quiet, the public did not. The hashtags kept trending. The demand for accountability refused to fade. Freeman's words had reignited something bigger than just a TV moment. This was now about the media's responsibility, and people were done letting them off the hook. Podcasts, roundtables, and social media deep dives picked apart the incident, dissecting its bigger implications. Was this just another media blunder? Or was it part of a larger pattern of silencing uncomfortable truths? Activists weren't asking if freedom of expression was being stifled. They were asking why mainstream platforms still struggled to confront real discussions about race, representation, and systemic inequities. But despite the initial pushback from certain circles, Freeman's message took root, and it spread fast. Parents began sharing his words with their children. Teachers wove the conversation into lesson plans. Even church leaders delivered sermons echoing his call to face the uncomfortable truths. His challenge, to tell all the stories, hit deep in communities that had long felt erased or twisted by media narratives. And Freeman's fans? They weren't about to let his legacy be questioned. They reminded everyone of his decades-long commitment to using his platform for something bigger than himself. Morgan Freeman isn't just an actor. He's a historian, a storyteller, and a truth-teller. One particularly fiery blog post went viral, declaring, "We need more voices like his. People willing to hold up a mirror to society, even when we don't like what we see." In the weeks that followed, major news outlets kept revisiting the conversation. Was Freeman's stance a turning point for media representation? Or would Hollywood just shrug it off like it had so many times before? And then, something shifted. Big names in the industry started speaking up, sharing their own experiences of being boxed into stereotypes or denied opportunities. But the call to action wasn't just about Hollywood. It was about everyone, about how we all consume and perpetuate narratives, often without even realizing it. But for Freeman, this was never about fame. It was never about controversy. As he had said during his appearance, "It's not about me being right. It's about us figuring out how to fix it." His words didn't just echo, they lingered. They forced people to sit with the real questions about history, about representation, about the narratives that have been sold to us for generations. And so, what began as a messy, contentious interview transformed into something far bigger. It became a reckoning, a cultural wake-up call. Morgan Freeman hadn't just started a conversation, he had fueled a movement. Through his measured words and unshakable conviction, he reminded the world of one simple, undeniable truth. The truth isn't always comfortable, but it's always necessary. And in the end, the legacy of that moment wasn't about the applause. It wasn't about the backlash. It was about one thing, the power of truth and its ability to spark real change, even in the places that fight it the hardest. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.